Okay, hope you can hear me okay. If you're watching this video, this is a posted video, so from my live stream. And if you want to see the live streams, make sure to please turn on your notifications, leave a comment, make sure to please subscribe. I went live this morning like I always do every morning, and unfortunately, the mass majority of you did not get a notification. Every live stream, this channel typically gets around 2,000 to 3,000 on the low-end viewers, up to 7,000 live viewers every show. This morning, the show only had, it's still a lot, but 800 live viewers, which I'm very thankful for. So we go live every morning. Unfortunately, I have no idea why the mass majority of you did not get to see the live show, but we had a live show this morning. Again, all I can say to you is if you guys don't want to miss the shows, the best thing you can do is like the live stream, interact with the videos, and that will help you to not miss the shows. So I appreciate all of you guys. Make sure, for those of you joining, to make sure to like the stream. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to do the show I had planned for this morning, and we're going to get through it. We have a lot of really big news, and it's great to see all of you guys. Thank you so much for being here. As of right now, we have this DHS hearing where we have a lot of back and forth between conservatives and Democrats trying to question the leaders of Border Patrol and ICE. I will be gathering a lot more of those clips for tomorrow. In this show, we're going to be talking about Minnesota, Minneapolis, St. Paul, and we're going to be talking about the SAVE Act. As of right now, we have some really big news. Maybe this won't be shocking to you. Maybe it will. There is a Republican who's not on board with the SAVE Act. Yeah, so we're going to be covering this. Maybe this is shocking to you. I have no idea. GOP Senator Lisa Murkowski comes out against Trump's election bill with a warning to her party. So we'll talk about this again, just getting news on that. And we have a lot of back and forth from politicians, between Democrat and Republican politicians. So we're going to cover all the things. And let's first start with this. So we're going to start with Director Todd Lyons talking about what they have been doing this year as far as ICE agents, but also specifically calling out Minnesota. The question was not about Minnesota. It was specifically like, hey, what are you doing this year for ICE? And you'll see what I mean. He really isolates Minnesota and talks about the leadership there.
Under the leadership of President Trump and DHS Secretary Kristi Noem, the men and women of ICE have been empowered to do exactly what they're trained to do: arrest and remove illegal aliens and criminals from our communities. We are enhancing public safety, securing our national security, and finally restoring integrity to the immigration system that had been allowed to collapse. We have supercharged our partnerships with state and local law enforcement, empowering officers around the country through the 287G program to help ICE identify and remove criminal aliens. Those partnerships have increased more than 900% since President Trump took office, and our communities are safer for it. I am also proud of our agency's unprecedented hiring campaign that led to hiring of more than 12,000 officers and special agents in less than a year, and more than 222,000 individuals submitted applications. This expansion of a well-trained and well-vetted workforce will help further ICE's abilities to execute President's and Secretary's bold agenda. Before discussing our broader operations, I must address the situation in Minnesota.
Right here, specifically calling out Minnesota. Now, there's some questions up in the air as far as what is happening right now behind the scenes. You're about to hear from Todd Lyons that, look, us operating in Minnesota has become very problematic. We do have indications of cooperation. Still, nonetheless, I mean, the second the agents hit the ground there, you'll hear from Todd Lyons. It's been an issue.
And the dangers that ICE agents and officers face nationwide. While the investigations remain ongoing, I'm encouraged that some Minnesota officials are finally signaling the willingness to cooperate with ICE. But let me be clear, promises are not enough. We need action. In the wake of the unprecedented border crisis of the previous administration, ICE has stepped into the breach to enforce the law. This commitment has a cost. We are facing the deadliest operating environment in our agency's history. In fiscal year 2025, death threats against ICE personnel increased more than 8,000%. Assaults on officers have skyrocketed over 1,400%. One officer in Minnesota had his finger bitten off by a protester, egged on by elected officials characterizing our offices as the Gestapo of secret police.
And by the way, get ready because we actually have an elected official who does an announcement or a breakdown as far as anti-ICE activities for the day. I'm about to show you guys that here in a second, where the city council president of Minneapolis, he had a whistle around his neck yesterday talking about some ICE operations occurring in his area. We'll get to that in a second.
The families of ICE personnel have been made to feel unsafe in their homes. I know this firsthand because my own family was targeted. But let me send a message to anyone who thinks they can intimidate us. You will fail. Despite these perils, our officers continue to execute their mission with unwavering resolve, and we are only getting started. ICE remains committed to the fundamental principles that those who illegally enter our country must be held accountable. Since the beginning of the second Trump administration, we have achieved historic results. From January 20th, 2025 through January 20th, 2026, ICE has conducted nearly 379,000 arrests. Among those arrests were more than 7,000 suspected gang members.
Okay, so again, I just want to show you guys the isolated portion talking about Minnesota. Now, this might shock some of you again, maybe not. You can actually find the updates for what occurred in the city of Minnesota. This is for bringmethenews.com. And when I say Minnesota, specifically, ICE spotted locations, deportation operations around the city. This is an updated map between St. Paul, Minnesota, and Minneapolis, Minnesota. Now, if you're wondering, like, how do we know what any of this means? Well, we can actually go to the city council president himself, and here's what he has to say, verifying there has still been an increase of ICE activity.
This is Council President Elliott Payne. I'm here on Central Avenue, and today we had a classic post-Homan day. It was a little bit slow in the morning, but sure enough, this afternoon, right around school dismissal, we saw ICE agents circling the block. They actually followed a observer, took them back to their home, pointed at their home. This is the third time that observer has had that experience. They're continuing to try to intimidate us. They're continuing to terrorize our community. And this operation isn't over, and it won't be over until we dismantle DHS. So stay out there. We're still winning. Stay safe. Stay vigilant.
And again, to reiterate, that is the city council president of Minneapolis. And yeah, that was just yesterday, talking about, again, using the word legal observer. For those of you that are unaware, a legal observer is identified as somebody who follows an ICE agent or observes them, is maybe the best way to put it. Now, to the Trump administration, they would identify that person as somebody else, but let's continue. So again, showing you guys, this is the updated map as far as ICE activity. Here's Tina Smith. The administration attacks on Minnesota continue, this time by threatening to allow copper sulfide mining in the watershed of the Boundary Waters, when a majority of Minnesotans have made it clear they don't want this mine. Not this mine, not this place. Keep public lands in public hands. So the pushback against the Trump admin is not only isolated with deportation operations. Governor Tim Walz recently making some comments. And by the way, guys, again, if you are just joining, we typically talk about Minnesota first in a lot of these live shows, and then we will be talking about the SAVE Act. We got a lot of back and forth. Governor Tim Walz recently, this is obviously not targeted enforcement, and we still don't know how many children they've taken. Specifically referencing, this is going very viral right now around the internet, and the Trump administration has had to talk about these statistics to include Todd Lyons and Border Patrol, ICE and Border Patrol talking about this data. And I'm curious what you guys think about this. So this is what's circulating right now. I'm sure you've heard it, that the vast majority of people that Homeland Security seems to arrest, they do not have a violent criminal record. So less than 14% of nearly 400,000 immigrants arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement in President Trump's first year back in the White House had charges or convictions for violent criminal offenses. Now, like we always do on this live stream show, we're going to do this very informally. If that percentage was only 1%, would you guys still be okay with this? 1 for 1%, or 2 if no. Because the argument from the Trump administration is it doesn't matter what that percentage is, there are still criminals. The counter argument from left-leaning politicians is, well, look, you guys have way too much of a budget, you're way too aggressive, the number's not that high, and you need to tone it down. I will let you guys decide how you feel about it, but when you look at the polling and statistics, again, Americans just are not fans of any sort of crime, regardless of the percentage rate. Attorney Pam Bondi recently, well, we'll talk about her later. I might do another show specifically talking about that. Again, if you guys are just joining, we'll talk about this here in a second. A Republican actually rejects passing the SAVE Act. And I'm curious how shocked you might be about that. I think we knew, but, you know, we'll see what Senator Fetterman's going to do. Mayor Fry also referencing that 14%. If the goal were truly public safety, the numbers would look very different. Minneapolis won't be silent while enforcement actions target innocent families. Now, I don't have the clip, but in the press hearing, Todd Lyons did say, hey, that 14%, those are the verified criminals. He's like, there's another number out there lingering under the 14% that's a lot larger than people realize, people who committed an initial crime. So that number would be like if you come into the country illegally, that's that number he's talking about. So if we're not going to call that a violent crime, you know, Americans still are classifying that as some sort of crime. Democrats would say, I think it's 54% say that coming into the country illegally is a crime. For Republicans, way high. So keep that in mind. Okay, so I've been wanting to show you guys this for a while. All right, so this was yesterday, 15 hours ago. This is Soren Stevenson, Minneapolis, Ward 8. This morning, 5 ICE vehicles parked illegally in a bike lane and in MPD parking spots directly outside of City Hall. Myself and several other council members and city staff went outside to observe them and blew our whistles to alert people nearby. After about 45 minutes, they left. We have a video. Get ready for this. Get ready for this. So he's claiming these are ICE vehicles. We went outside and we are observing. Again, I see some of you putting observing in the quotations. Terminology is very crucial. You guys need to make sure you're looking at every single detail of terminology. Prime example, during the hearing today, Todd Lyons was asked, do you have a database of protesters? He said no. Now, hold on. I thought Homeland Security, they were taking pictures of people, you know, and possibly putting them in a database. That's because Todd Lyons, they don't put protesters in the database. They put agitators. Big difference. However, as you guys know, everybody gets called a protester. So let's go to this. Okay, I have to stop there. That hurts my ear, actually. So again, those are city councilors doing that, mind you. And don't worry, I have a member of Congress who talks about a whistle here later in the show. And again, if you guys are joining, we do this live. We go live every single day, and I don't want you to miss a thing. Unfortunately, the vast, vast majority of all of you missed the morning live show. I have no idea why that happened. So again, the only thing I can tell you is turn on your notification, like the video so you guys don't miss a thing. We typically do this in the morning. Unfortunately, a lot of you were saying, I never got told, I never got a notification, I didn't get to see it. So we have contacted YouTube to figure out why that happened to you, because I think you guys deserve a good show every day, and so you guys can stay informed. Okay, so here's the follow-up. All right, here's the follow-up. Following this incident, I followed up with the mayor to ask for more information about what happened. His chief of staff confirmed that the mayor and his administration had a meeting with border czar Tom Homan. That was Tom Homan this whole time. So basically, Tom Homan rolled up, and you guys can let me know how you feel about it. And again, don't worry, this is not going to be a totally one-sided show. We'll get to the other talking points. Turns out Tom Homan rolled up and said, we're parking here. I assume the ICE vehicles outside were part of Homan's convoy. Minneapolis residents have been very clear, and now this is actually the part I really wanted to show you guys. Minneapolis residents have been very clear, being a sanctuary city means no collaboration with ICE and federal immigration enforcement. City Hall is meant to be a space of and for the people of our city. This right here, to me, really stands out. Obviously, you're going to have people blowing whistles. Like, we know that happens. But this right here, the no compromise, I will be paying attention to that. Because here we have somebody basically calling out the mayor and saying, hold on, we're a sanctuary city. And we see this a lot. We actually saw this in Portland where Portland protesters were upset with the city council. The city council promised or said, we're going to get rid of the Portland Federal Building. Protesters came out and said, okay, the building is still there. Now it looks like you're compromising. We see this a lot with sanctuary cities where a little bit of compromise that leads in the favor or leans in the favor of possibly working with the Trump admin, you get stuff like this. Knowingly violating our separation ordinance and endangering the people that work in and around it violates our shared values and the trust that residents imbue us with as elected officials. This is a long statement. Hosting the border czar and ICE agents in City Hall and its parking areas is a violation of the city's separation ordinance and broader city policy. These are in place to protect our residents and city staff. I have heard from staff and their unions that workers at the city of Minneapolis have been abducted by ICE while on the job or while coming to and from work. This lays out clearly why the city must be vigilant in enforcement of the separation ordinance. Oof. Wow. If the mayor needs to meet with the border czar or other high-level ICE officials, as he has done in the past, these meetings must take place off of city property. I don't know where they're going to have that meeting. Does that mean that they have to go to like a restaurant or something? And I'm not even trying to be smart here. Like, I am very curious. I'm just trying to show you guys, again, even from, if we're going to speak from whatever perspective, from a left-leaning perspective, this is the zero compromise you are seeing right now in Minneapolis for some elected officials. Zero compromise. Like, they don't care. I don't care if you're having a meeting. We don't even know what the meeting was about. It was just a meeting. But the fact it was on city property involving Tom Homan and the mayor, this was enough for pushback to get upset about it. This could have been a meeting trying to figure out how are we going to find missing children. We don't know. And I do wonder, would the tune of this change at all? I'll let you guys decide. So I do my best to try showing you guys all the different sides here. And I really appreciate all of you. Thank you again. God bless all of you, and thank you for being here. Given the repeated examples of deception, trickery, and violence being used by ICE to kidnap our neighbors, it is our responsibility to never bring ICE into places where our residents or employees could be at risk. Going forward, it is vital that the mayor hear our city's concerns and refrain from holding these kinds of meetings on city property and keep ICE away from our at-risk residents and employees. So that is his statement. Again, if you guys are just joining, came out with the whistle. There you go. Some more updates here. This is from the Democratic Coalition. What Minnesota has done is show the rest of the country and the world how to come together and organize and fight Trump's fascist mass goon squad. It's been truly inspiring to watch. Check out this number. I told you guys this was going to happen. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I said I would not be laughing at how little protesters there were just 3 weeks ago, or people wanting to get trained. So this number right now that's being cited, nearly 30,000 Minnesotans trained as constitutional observers, up from 2,500 in November. When we first covered this story, this was the number. And even before this, training was underway. Before the federal surge, organizers in St. Paul were already saying, we've been preparing for months before the Nick Shirley video, before any of this. There's already been groundwork laid out because the Trump administration made it clear, we're going into Minnesota. We're looking into what's happening here. So this shouldn't be surprising to anyone. And the fact that the number is 30,000 now, who knows what that number is going to be in the very near future. Moving forward. Right here, yesterday, the Minnesota Federation of Educators ran a battlefield simulation training for war against ICE. So, yeah, every once in a while, if you just look for it, you can find these types of pictures and videos. Now, I found this video. I figured you guys would want to see this. You guys remember those blockades that were popping up in Minnesota? We have a video of what one of those blockades or checkpoints, whatever you want to call it, we have a video of what one of them looked like on the inside. And from a journalistic perspective, I think you guys are probably going to want to see this. So here we go. This is what it looks like inside one of those blockades. Very recent video.
What was that meeting? They had the street blocked up.
There's like
All right, so you guys can let me know how you feel about that. That was an ocarina. Now, I don't know if she was playing a specific song, but that was an ocarina made famous from the game Zelda. Never thought I'd ever reference Zelda. Okay, so let's play this clip real fast. Talking about the barricades real quick. I may have to play this ad.
Are you looking to start your own business? Well, look no further than busy.com. Right now, we'll complete.
All right.
The city of Minneapolis is doubling down on its stance around barricades set up in neighborhoods specifically designed to slow down federal agents. Ian Russell is here with why the city says they must come down. Ian?
Yeah, well, Lauren, these really started popping up after Renee Good.
Hey, who knows? Maybe the meeting with Tom Homan that we saw yesterday with that city councilor could have been about these blockades. Tom Homan, within the day he talked to the police chief of Minneapolis, the blockade started going down. So Tom Homan, I think, has a lot more power than people realize as far as influence goes.
Was shot and killed by an ICE agent on January 7th. Since then, they've gone up and come down in various spots across Minneapolis. Now, many have been on the south side of the city, though. A city Minneapolis spokesperson says just this past weekend, at least 11 road obstructions were taken down. Sky 11 captured one being removed this past Saturday. Now, people manning the barricades told our crews they're doing this to literally slow down immigration officials.
Yeah, so I think now the accurate way of talking about this would be a barricade or blockade. Like, the intention behind it is to, like you heard, slow them down. There's really no getting around that. I mean, that's the proper definition, right, to identify what we're watching.
Saying that they're speeding through neighborhoods and to keep their neighborhoods safe. Now, Border Czar Tom Homan addressed the roadblocks in a press conference last week, saying he'd spoke to the Minneapolis Police Department about them.
It's illegal. You can't do that. And again, a message to those folks, what are you doing? You really think you're going to stop an ICE and CBP from doing the job? It's a joke. Only people you're hurting is your own community who wants to go and get groceries, pick up the dry cleaning, or go to work, whatever. You're just hindering them.
Now, the city spokesperson says that keeping the roads blocked is a public safety concern, saying that there are serious concerns for police, fire.
I think Tom Homan was just almost puzzled. We have to remember, Tom Homan has 20 plus years of experience in the field. He's seen the worst of the worst. And I think to him, the notion of there's going to be a roadblock in the middle of a roadway. I mean, he even said verbatim on Fox News, he's like, we're just going to drive around them if we don't get any help here from the city. But it looks like the city is helping out. Now, again, sticking with the topic of Minnesota, this was pretty huge. So we have a mayor who actually came out and is, if we're going to use the word, exposing Tim Walz for his corrupt leadership. There's a lot of mayors right now in the state of Minnesota who are coming together and starting to call out some of the challenges they're having and some of the observations they have. And again, this is not going to be the pile on Tim Walz show, but this is what the news is right now. And don't worry, pretty soon we will be getting to the SAVE Act. So again, make sure to please like the video. Helps out a ton. Thank you guys again for being here. So here we go with this.
Prevent them from showing up and doing what they're doing here?
No, they were coming anyway. It was all make-believe that we'd been at it. Every state had this. And look, I do think there has to be accountability in this. No one in state government was implicated.
Mayor, to the governor, you say what?
It's crazy how there's been no one that's been so-called implicated when whistleblowers and fraud have lost their jobs and been fired by the state of Minnesota. I mean, if we're firing people that are reporting fraud, how is the Minnesota state government, the executive branch in particular, not implicated or complicit in allowing fraud to be rampant.
Yeah, it's a good point. Here's another mayor from your state, Nate George. This is at the Mayors Across Minnesota presser that happened on Wednesday.
I will do my best to figure out if there are like Democrat mayors as well. It's not only one-sided. I'm going to be looking into this more to see if there is like more people on the broad political spectrum who are also calling this out. I'll be curious to be looking into that. I will look into that for you guys.
Specifically on fraud in your state, he said this.
When fraud or mismanagement happens at higher levels and is allowed to continue unchecked, the consequences are pushed downstream. Every dollar lost to waste, fraud, and mismanagement is a dollar that can't go to roads, public safety, housing, or tax relief.
So you all are identifying this as a big problem, obviously, but there is a DHS whistleblower detailing what is described as a smear campaign after reporting fraud concerns to the state. This is a former Minnesota DHS employee, Faye Bernstein, on her experiencing tried to report this fraud years ago and the retaliation that followed. Listen.
The smear campaign starts where you are told that you are racist, and then your job duties are lessened and lessened until you basically have no job duties. I have notified numerous times, to the point that sometimes I'm kind of embarrassed to repeat myself because I have just become a broken record. So to say that leadership was not aware or the governor was not aware I can tell you that is absolutely false.
Okay, so yeah, you guys can let me know how you feel about that. As far as the fraud implications in Minnesota, again, my understanding is Tim Walz is not fully denying the fraud, but the denial more so is in like, it's not as big as what people are saying. I have to find that clip because I know for a fact there's a clip out there or an interview where Tim Walz says, if there's fraud, the buck stops with me. And also implying he knows there might be some. All right. Now, speaking of Minnesota, on a more federal scale, if you will, Congresswoman Omar's husband has really been in the news lately as far as looking into what's happening with their net worth. So let's talk about this, and then we have verification from the Oversight Committee who's overseeing this. They have confirmed this is happening.
Chad, thank you. And focus now. Kaylee McGee-White, a Fox News contributor. Look, there's a whole lot of money on Capitol Hill, both sides of the aisle. And you could say that you want to follow all the money trail. Look at the Shush Fund years ago, where women were being quieted for some of the discrimination that was going on in the Hill. So we get that. This is a very specific case. Why is that?
Yeah, I was doing a bit of research into Tim Minnette, Ilhan Omar's husband's various businesses, and his investment firm, it has no known clients, no known investment deals. It doesn't even have an active SEC registration. Whoa. And his winery, which is also purportedly making him millions of dollars per year, has no online presence. It has no marketable products available for purchase online. And get this, back in 2024, an investor into that winery actually sued Minnette and his business partners, alleging that they had fraudulently misrepresented the winery as a legitimate business operation. I mean, that is a very big revelation. By a show of hands, is this the first time you are hearing that? Number one, if that's the first time you're hearing that. Now, by the way, it's not only Congresswoman Omar that is being investigated as well. There are other members of Congress from the broad spectrum of how people can make money, whether it's the stock market, whether it's investments with housing, just keeping an eye on how you were worth tens of thousands to millions. But again, it's not only Congresswoman Omar's family that is being investigated or people are looking into. So yeah, maybe there's a version of events here in which, of course, all of this is conveniently timed with his wife's election to Congress and her growing considerable influence in the Democratic Party. And maybe there is a version of events in which Ilhan Omar and her husband have just been extremely fortunate. Yeah. But in that case, you would think that Ilhan Omar might be a bit more appreciative for this country and the ways in which it's aided her success. But I look at these events and I think they have cracked the Hunter Biden playbook. And I think that there are many other people in Washington, D.C. who watched the success of the influence peddling scheme that the Biden family ran. And more importantly, they saw that the Biden family faced zero consequences for that scheme. And they decided to try and replicate the results themselves. So I do hope that James Comer is successful at cracking what is actually going on here, because I think that she's probably not the only one in Washington with some considerable wealth to answer for.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I have another clip in this show. As you guys can see, I have a million clips. And by the way, just so you guys are aware, this is quite literally only 20% of the clips I have for you guys. My computer crashed because I had too many clips, and I didn't know, I thought computers nowadays you could have more than 50 clips on a screen, but I guess not. There are other politicians too that are possibly going to be investigated or looked into.
Why are you targeting her when there is a Ilhan Omar? Your committee investigation with Ilhan Omar, when there is a process in the House, if people have questions about their conduct, this would go through the ethics committee. Why is this under
and I've spoken, I'm glad you asked that question. I've spoken with the ethics committee. The ethics committee has jurisdiction over members of Congress. The two businesses in question are owned by Ms. Omar's husband. So the ethics committee does not have jurisdiction over a spouse, only a member. So that's why we just asked, we would have questions. I don't think anyone would.
It would pertain to her overall finances, because that is listed on her financial disclosure report, even though that's her spouse.
We've run this by the ethics committee, and we think this is the appropriate route. So.
Okay, so you guys let me know what you think about this. Do you think that oversight is stepping too far into this? Are they crossing the line, or do you think this is the proper move? Because obviously this could open up the door for more investigations. But yeah, let's move forward. This is from Senate Republicans actually posted this. Democrats are not cooperating with authorities at the federal level, and the result is utter chaos in Minneapolis. And this is the last video as far as focusing on Minnesota. We will be getting into the SAVE Act here pretty soon. Memphis is becoming one of the safest cities in America because we have cooperation.
As you mentioned.
And I am almost positive Memphis is ranked one of the most crime-ridden cities in the United States. And that's not me trying to be mean to Memphis. That's just a simple statistic. Memphis tends to be like in the top 3 categorically for crimes committed in the United States, which is why the Trump administration sent in that federal surge.
This isn't a serious negotiation. This is all happening in the media trying to motivate a radical left base. The main difference between what we're seeing in Minneapolis, Shannon, and the situation that you and Senator Warner were just discussing is a lack of cooperation. Look no further than Memphis, Tennessee. In Memphis, in Tennessee, we actually have cooperation with local authorities. If the local authorities would cooperate in Minneapolis with ICE, they would issue the detainer, the ICE agent would go directly to the jail, pick up the person, and move on.
Okay, so I think you guys get the point. Now the question is, like, let's say tomorrow all of a sudden we have mass cooperation, and the police and the mayor, and all of a sudden tomorrow the governor says, you know what, we're going to work together. You know, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the fix. I have said this before, because we are seeing some sort of cooperation. We know there's cooperation because the barricades are being taken down. On Sunday, it was either Sunday or Saturday, we had 50 protesters arrested, and the numbers are only increased, and that was from the state. That wasn't the federal government. Yet there is still an increase of legal observers. We just saw a city councilor run outside with his whistle. And so I think if the only solution is, well, cooperation, that's all we need, I don't think it's as simple as that. I think there are a lot more pieces to that puzzle, but I do think that's a significant piece of the puzzle. Now, I have to play this clip for you guys. We saw this live in today's morning show that unfortunately did not get pushed out to a lot of people, but this is Representative Shri Thandar. He is for abolishing ICE. But this happened just hours ago during his questionnaire to the different heads of Homeland Security. Here's what he has to say.
Do you think President Trump will pardon you and your boss, Kristi Noem, before he leaves office, just like he has for insurrectionists and his political allies? Do you believe President Trump will pardon you? Because, go ahead.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of President Trump, but I'll tell you, I signed up for this job to protect America, and I'm very proud of the service that I provide, and I don't need a pardon from anybody.
Well, you better hope so. You better hope you get being pardoned, because you will be held accountable for the absolute disregard of the law your agencies have shown over the past year. Your agencies have lost the trust of the American people, with millions taking to the streets to protect the illegal actions of your agencies. And that's why I introduced a bill in the United States Congress to abolish ICE.
That's right. And this Friday will be the big vote. So that happened just hours ago. I figured I'd throw that in there as far as relevant talking points for the day. And I have so many different clips and talking points. We could do like a 5-hour show. That's not going to happen right now, but I'm just letting you know there's a lot of back and forth, and especially revolving around the possibility of wanting to reform ICE, but also this idea of the SAVE Act. Now, for those of you just joining, just so you are aware, we are getting breaking news that GOP Senator Lisa Murkowski comes out against Trump's election bill with a warning to her party. She says, Lisa Murkowski became the first Republican senator to speak out against the SAVE Act, a sweeping bill. In doing so, the Alaskan reminded her colleagues on Tuesday that they roundly claimed to oppose new federal election laws as recently as Joe Biden's presidency. When Democrats attempted to advance sweeping election reform legislation in 2021, Republicans were unanimous in opposition because it would have federalized elections, something we have long opposed, she says. Now I'm seeing proposals such as the SAVE Act and MEGA that would effectively do just that. Once again, I do not support these efforts. Not only does the U.S. Constitution clearly provide states the authority to regulate the times, places, and manner of holding federal elections, but one-size-fits-all mandates from Washington, D.C. seldom work in places like Alaska. All right, so you guys can let me know how you feel about that, but we don't have a comment from the Trump administration as of right now or other Republicans because that just happened.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. As these negotiations are happening, the Homeland Security Committee will hold an oversight hearing tomorrow where they'll hear from the heads of ICE, CBP, and U.S. He's able to grab the ICE and our president's officials for getting through, at least for the administration.
Donald Trump and the administration promised that their immigration enforcement policies were going to target violent felons. They lied to the American people. The Trump administration is not targeting violent felons. They're targeting American citizens, communities throughout this country, and law-abiding immigrant families. The American people know that ICE is completely and totally out of control. They've gone too far and need to be reined in. At the hearing this week, Trump administration officials should apologize to the American people for using their taxpayer dollars to unleash wicked brutality on the American people, and in some cases, kill them in cold blood, like Renee Nicole Good and Alex Preddy.
And by the way, during the hearing today, that was brought up a lot, was those two.
The administration also needs to commit to the dramatic changes that Democrats have forcefully put on the table, including but not limited to mandatory body cameras, judicial warrant requirements, no masks, an end to roving patrols that are brutalizing American communities, no racial profiling, no targeting of sensitive locations like schools, hospitals, houses of worship, and polling sites, and independent investigations to ensure that when ICE officials break the law, state and local officials can investigate them and prosecute anyone who has committed a crime.
Now, that's the big one. Giving, passing a law, which I don't even know how that would work, passing a law that the state can its mind. So, again, it's a little complex, but he's just basically listing off the different demands that Democrats have as of right now.
In the United States of America. House and Senate Democrats have clearly transmitted to the American people and clearly transmitted to the White House and our colleagues in the House and the Senate the types of dramatic changes that need to occur at the Department of Homeland Security before a funding bill moves forward this Friday, and we're still waiting to hear back from the White House, which shows to me that these extremists aren't serious about getting ICE under control.
Okay. Now, the White House has made it clear there will be zero compromise as far as the list that he has. During the oversight hearing today, the question was posed, how many cameras are out there? Todd Lyons and the Border Patrol leader, they did say they are going to be getting more of these body cameras. But again, there was a little provision put in there by Democrats. They said, we want the body cameras, so that is something that Republicans and Democrats would actually agree on. But then the provision in there was, but you cannot use the cameras to track in any way. It just has to be. You cannot use it to track or help you with your investigation to possibly track a protester. Chuck Schumer says the SAVE Act's goal is disenfranchising over 21 million Americans and making it harder for eligible people to vote, particularly low-income Americans and people of color. That's the truth. The SAVE Act is dead on arrival in the Senate. Senate Democrats will not sign on to stripping the right to vote from tens of millions of American citizens. Consistent messaging from Chuck Schumer and from other Democrat leaders. That argument of, well, look, if we pass this law, there are Americans out there, it can be difficult to get the type of ID that you guys are wanting, whether photo ID, birth certificate, etc. You guys can let me know how you feel about this argumentation. That's just simply what the argument is that they're using right now. Here is Eric Schmidt.
All right, want to understand what's going to happen in Washington this week? Here's what's going down. This week will all be about the Department of Homeland Security funding package. All the other appropriations bills were passed. This is the one remaining. The Democrats have put out a bunch of ridiculous proposals that would kneecap ICE's ability to carry out and execute our immigration laws, like deportations. We're not doing that. So I've offered my own proposal, the Protect America Act, in sanctuary cities, increases penalties for illegal entry and reentry, increases penalties against ICE agents, and then also gets rid of these NGOs if they're fueling this political discord and violence on the streets.
This is the only way I see Republicans ever compromising to any of what Democrats would want. If you want the face mask removed, okay, if somebody takes advantage of that and they leak information about Homeland or an agent, 20 years in prison. Like, I'm just throwing that out there. That's sort of what he's referencing. But again, from a Democrat perspective, you could probably say from their perspective, well, no, we can't compromise here. That's too extreme. So we are at a gridlock.
That's our answer. The Democrats are not going to stop the deportations. All that money's quite frankly been front-loaded in the working families tax cut this summer. But that's what you're going to see play out this whole week. Democrats will make a lot of noise, but the only thing they'll actually defund is TSA and FEMA. So let's have the debate. Let's move forward with this, but we're not going to concede to what the Democrats want.
It's just the simple truth. That 71% of Democrat voters want voter ID.
Here's a Pew survey, okay? All Americans right now, different parties, on support for requiring some form of photo ID. You're at 83%. Among Democrats, you're at 71. Republicans are at...
And I have yet to have an actual specific answer identifying how they feel about that 71%. And when I say they, I mean Democrat officials. So far, we've heard from several Democrat officials who get asked about this number, and they say that's not the proper question. You're not interpreting this. You're not looking into this correctly. This is just a way for the Trump administration to rig the midterms. If you want to call that a deflection, we can call that a deflection. But we have yet to hear a black and white answer like, hey, when you see that number as a Democrat politician, do you feel a little odd that the mass majority of your voter base would disagree with you? We haven't heard like a no, I don't care, or no, I can see that. We haven't heard that yet. When I do find that, I will be playing that for you guys.
95. Doesn't seem to be much of a debate based on those numbers, Will.
Can I give you two more numbers that I think tell this entire story as well, Bill, from that same Pew Research study? Something like 86% of Latinos support voter ID, and 71% of Black Americans support voter ID. Of course, why is that important? Because to listen to Hakeem Jeffries or any other Democrat tell the story, it is the voter suppression targeted at minority voters. They tell minority voters, they tell America, the Black Americans, Latino Americans don't have the wherewithal to get an ID. Meanwhile, those very same people they purport to speak for say, you know what, that makes a lot of sense. You should prove who you are before you vote.
And we've already gone through the Pew Research. You guys can do your own research on the Pew Research. But yeah, on those stats, Will Kane is actually correct. The stats did isolate and identify the specific ethnicity. I think it's down here, actually. I think I saw it in the comments. Somebody posted that. Yeah, it's right here. We have it right here. This is what he's talking about.
Take a look here. Favorite photo ID to vote. 85% of white people favor it. 82% of Latino. 76% of Black Americans favor it. So the bottom line is this. Voter ID is not controversial in this country. A photo ID to vote is not controversial in this country. It is not controversial by party, and it is not controversial by race. The vast majority of Americans agree with Nicki Minaj that...
Yeah, Nicki Minaj. Nicki Minaj. So, again, cross-referencing what Chuck Schumer said. Where'd he go? Yeah, right here. The SAVE Act goal is disenfranchising over 21 million Americans, making it harder for eligible people to vote, particularly low-income Americans and people of color. That's the truth. So again, I'm just simply here to show you guys all of the different talking points, and at the end of the day, you can believe what you want to believe or see what you want to see, but it's my job to try and give you both sides of the story here, so let us move forward.
You paid a compliment to Senator John Fetterman. You talked about his attire. And by the way, I have a whole host of new compliments for Senator Fetterman. Despite our many, many disagreements, I continue to find him interesting and independent.
You guys let me know how you feel about John Fetterman. 1, if you like Fetterman. 2, if you don't. Caveat, just so you guys are aware, Mr. Fetterman is not a fan of Kristi Noem and how she's been operating, so... It is interesting. Fetterman doesn't want to shut down the government. He doesn't want to abolish ICE, but he does say he does think Kristi Noem should be fired.
But you had something.
Somebody said 1.5.
Say about his attire. You said he's basically the Hills Hollywood. He is Adam Sandler. Here's my serious question to you about it. Whenever I talk about Fetterman, and if I pay him a compliment like I just did with you, there are people who say to me, have some respect, Senator. Dress up. It is a big job in Washington, D.C.
It doesn't bother me. Look, I like John Fetterman. I like him a lot. We don't vote together very often, but I really like him. Now, you know, some may consider that a questionable life choice, but I don't. I think the guy's a total banger. He's a maverick. He follows the rules on the Senate floor, and I really like him. And what I like about John is he plays outside the pocket. He just doesn't give a damn who's mad at him, you know?
And that's true. I think it was 4 shows again. There was a prominent Democrat who came out and said, Senator Fetterman is not a Democrat. That was another lawmaker who was a Democrat. And I think it's true. I don't think he cares who likes him or not.
Oh, if you ask him, Fetterman, you know, how do you sleep at night knowing that there are people out there that hate you? He's likely to say something like, you know, with the fan on. You know, he just doesn't care. And I find that refreshing.
You know, I will say...
He's a total banger.
A total banger. That's a new phrase for me, Senator. We're going to have to get you on the Will Kane Country at a longer episode to figure out exactly what that Louisiana term means.
It's a compliment.
I'm taking it. I'm reading that it is a compliment. I really am.
I've personally never heard of he's a banger, and that I've heard it's a banger. Like it's a banger of a song. That's a great song. So, to my understanding, Fetterman, he said the reason why he dresses this way is because he's really tall and it's hard to find suits, if I remember correctly, as to why he dresses this way. I know a lot of people maybe like it or hate it, but yeah.
I will say I agree with you. I would much rather a maverick who dresses like Adam Sandler than an impeccable conformist. I would much rather Adam Sandler in the Senate and in the mind than a partisan conformist, but with a nice suit. If that's a banger, I'm with you, Senator.
Okay, so let's move forward. Man, some of these interviews get me, man. All right, this is a serious show. Okay, moving forward. I have a lot of news on Oregon, just so you guys are aware. Like there was somebody arrested in Oregon who made some pretty crazy threats against federal agents. I might have to do a whole dedicated video or live stream on that. So make sure you guys are paying attention for that video. It's pretty intense what the person was saying, allegedly. Let's move on here. I mean, this might shock some of you. The person has a $400,000 cash bond and is a flight risk. They won't let him leave. All right.
And I must say, I'm going to speak to this in very blunt terms. We now have secret police in America. Around the world, we have watched where there have been police with no markings, who they are, nothing on their car, go and grab people off the street, or knock down their doors and grab them, disappear them, do not have access to attorneys, do not have access to friends. Can't even find out where they are being held around the country often. Those set of things that I just described, that's secret police. And they're terrorizing our communities, and it's unconstitutional. It has to be put to an end. I'm going to do every damn thing I can to do so.
Okay, so you guys can let me know if you agree with this senator. As we always try to do on the show is we do the old back and forth, all the different talking points that have been released for the day. One thing you might notice, depending on where the politician might be from, you have more aggressive stances towards Homeland Security. To me, not too shocked that a politician from Oregon is saying what he's saying. Now, this is circulating around the internet. Countries with voter ID. Again, Democrats and Republicans actually agree on this one point vastly. This would be the screenshot. Countries with voter ID. Some pretty notable countries on there. Iraq, voter ID. Who else do we see on there? A lot of them. Estonia, Botswana, Canada, our neighbors. So yeah, these are the countries with voter ID. Now, just so you guys are aware, the SAVE Act is not only like voter ID. There are some things in there, such as if this law gets passed, states have to then kick illegal immigrants out of their system, and if not, there will be penalties. So there are some more provisions inside of just the ID aspect. There's some more details in there, just so you guys are aware, which could be why there's possibly pushback. Now, let's go to this. This is pretty big.
He just convicted a woman in Massachusetts of voter fraud.
The reason why this is big is because there are some politicians who are saying the reason why we don't have to pass the SAVE Act is because there's either no evidence of voter fraud or there's such a lackluster evidence of voter fraud that there's no point to pass this. Well, now this just happened.
Prosecutors say that she also stole more than $400,000 in federal benefits. White House correspondent Aisha Hasni reports live from the North Lawn. Hi, Aisha.
Hey there, Martha. We're talking about a 59-year-old illegal immigrant who's been in the country for years, stole someone else's identity, and then voted in the 2024 presidential election. Take a look at this photo here. This is Lina Maria Arovio Hernandez. In this picture, you can see her, Martha, wearing that I voted sticker that we all get when we go to cast our ballots. She's also convicted of stealing $400,000, as you mentioned, in benefits. She apparently used her fake identity to obtain multiple state IDs and also a passport. So the president this morning
Now, again, this is the question I pose here, and Americans tend to not care. If this was the only case in the entire United States, would you guys still want this law passed? Let's say in our made-up situation, there is no fraud in the United States whatsoever when it comes to voter ID, but we did find this one case. Do you think this one case would still constitute wanting to pass this law? And I guarantee a lot of you would say yes, because when you look at the polls, even the Pew Research, and you cross-reference everything, Americans don't tend to care if it's only one time. They would just rather have it be 0 times, and that's just from Democrat to Republican.
On Sunday posted this on Truth Social. America's elections are rigged, stolen, and a laughingstock all over the world. He is calling for voter ID, proof of citizenship, and bans on mail-in ballots as he supports the SAVE Act on Capitol Hill. That's a Republican-led voter ID bill that is expected to hit the floor of the House this week. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries is claiming the bill is just an attempt by Republicans to rig the midterm elections.
The question is that what Republicans are trying to do.
To give you context about this interview, because I think this point is more crucial, Hakeem Jeffries was specifically asked, hey, the 71% of Democrats who don't side with you, what do you have to say to that? This was actually his answer.
What Republicans are trying to do is to engage in clear and blatant voter suppression. They know that if there's a free and fair election in November, they're going to lose.
Now, again, I don't know if the word dismissive of the question is the proper way to acknowledge that, but we have yet to find a politician who's a Democrat who specifically acknowledges the 71%. Fetterman actually might be the only one I can think of, but as far as like opposition. So here is another interesting segment here. Again, getting all the different perspectives.
You know, we're far from the only country, by the way, with voter ID. I mean, there's a long list. There it is, that you need to show ID to vote, and you need to show ID when you register, and citizenship.
Some of our greatest allies of the United States are on this list.
But there's a recent Pew poll. 83% of Americans supported, including 76% blacks in this country. You know, David, I'll start with you. Why is there so much pushback on something like voter ID when you and I can't get anywhere without an ID?
Well, first off, that poll that you showed is conflating the SAVE Act with showing ID to vote. So they're not one and the same. So let's be clear about that. There are other restrictions in the SAVE Act that I think many of us have concerns with, and particularly top it off with Donald Trump talking about nationalizing elections or even canceling elections.
Again, guys, I am not trying to form or create a narrative. It just seems like, it appears as if every single time this question gets asked to somebody who opposes any of this, when the number gets brought up, we don't necessarily hear the direct answer.
It's not clear.
I would have more respect if somebody just said, I don't care, we don't agree with them.
All right, but those are two separate. Those are two separate things.
Yeah, but
mentioned that you're opposed to some things in the SAVE Act, like what?
Right, and here in New York, we have to show our ID when we register to vote. But making these added hoops and all of these different concerns, it's not about restricting people from voting. We should get more people to vote.
But people are. There's no decline in voting.
No. We've seen case after case where the right tries to talk about these improprieties. We haven't seen them. There's been investigations, even by the Heritage Foundation. Their own report has shown that it just doesn't exist. So
okay, but aren't you making the point that there's no hurdles to voting in this country?
No, there are hurdles to voting. I just said in New York State, we have to show our identification to register to vote.
Okay, so that's the first time I heard this argument. It is a hurdle to show your ID to vote. Now, it seems like we might have different definitions of what a hurdle might be or how severe a hurdle might be, but you guys can let me know how you feel about that, using that as an example of a hurdle.
Show our identification to register to vote, and then we go and vote. But why should we have to have another hurdle showing up on a Tuesday or a special election or you name it?
You know, I don't know. I don't know what to say to that. I am really trying to be as fair as possible here. I am seriously trying to find one politician who will acknowledge that percentage, because I really want to know. I'm super interested, and I'm sure a lot of you guys also want to know as well. So make sure to please subscribe or turn on your notifications, because one day we will get an answer to that 71%, or maybe we won't. I don't know. But again, as you guys can see, a lot of times it's not talking about that number. It's going down into the rabbit hole of the other provisions that I was talking about just 10 minutes ago or so. From Senate Republicans, Democrats want to stop immigration laws from being enforced and make a law enforcement job more dangerous. Moving forward.
I guess what bothers me about this is just the principled argument. Like, I'm sorry, but yeah, you know, people do fight and die for this country. People do give up a lot to be here. Think about the people that immigrate here and what they do for 7, 8, 12 years to become a citizen. And think about the work people put in to be a part of this. Think about the felons in this country, the nonviolent felons that go through work to get the right to vote back because they found themselves in prison, they were reformed, they came out, and they're good people. The one's pretty close to me in my life, and I was talking to him about this just a day ago. And people are willing to sacrifice so much to take part in this. I'm sorry, I grew up poor. I am disabled. If you ain't got what it takes to go get the right documentation to show that you're a citizen, if voting doesn't matter any more to you than that, I don't give a damn if you ever vote again, because I don't care what you have to say.
Okay, so you guys can let me know. Press 1 if you agree with that, 2 if you don't agree with that. Again, sort of responding to the talking point of, well, it's a hurdle, it can be problematic. Was it Chuck Schumer? I forget who it was, cited 20 million Americans are going to be affected by this, thus they won't be able to vote. That's the next question the Pew Research Center, I think, should be researching. Do we see this as a hurdle or not? That's what I would be curious, you know?
And if that's mean or elitist or whatever, I really don't care. And if you're a politician and those are the people you're advocating for, I really hope you lose too. Because if you're going to be in the greatest and most prosperous country in the world, you should want to take part in it and give a little to do it. I mean, what was it, JFK? Don't ask what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. You can find your birth certificate and go get a free ID to vote. That's what you can do for your country.
Yeah, okay. And again, this is a very odd. This is an odd one that I've reported on. This is the first time I've reported on a story where Republicans and Democrats vastly agree on something, but the politicians don't. I think this is the first time this has happened. This is going to be U.S. Representative Al Green. Here's what he had to say very recently.
Yes, Kristi Noem must go.
Yes.
But let me complete the sentence. She must go to jail. Yes. She must go to jail. What Kristi Noem did in attempting to cover up the deaths of people seen actually terminated on national TV is not only sinful, it's more than regrettable, it is criminal. She must go to jail. To jail. Lock her up.
Lock her up.
Lock her up. Lock her up. Lock her up.
Okay, so I personally have hypothesized that this is going to be the next big talking point after the U.S. government hopefully figures out funding for Homeland Security. That, in my opinion, I think the next thing we're going to be seeing is a push to try and impeach Kristi Noem. And so we are seeing signs of that from other politicians who not only want to abolish ICE or are not fans of ICE, but are not fans of Kristi Noem. Okay, so this is going to be Representative Rashida Tlaib? I don't know how to say her name properly. I apologize. But she had a very interesting speech. Tlaib. Here we go. I apologize for that, the whistle. There's a whistle here.
And this. That's all of our residents are using right now to protect themselves in the streets. Do you understand? This is what they're using. Whistles and their camera. Let's see what this army, fascist army disguised as some sort of federal agency is using. This is the home of Tiana and Garrison. This is their private home. Let's see what they have. U.S. Immigration Customs Enforcement agents, I'm not talking about Border Patrol, they got stuff too, are equipped with
So I made this talking point before that some Democrats are very informed, and okay, do not take this as me supporting what she's saying. She is smart to isolate ICE and Border Patrol, because we saw during the Oversight Committee, it was either Representative Thandir or the other person. He was conflating ICE and Border Patrol together, was making a point that ICE is bad. I want to abolish ICE, but had a picture of Chief Bovino in the background. And the reason why I'm saying she's smart to do this, again, I'm not endorsing her. I'm not saying I agree with her. She can then isolate different problems that she might have in order to possibly create more policies to stop what she wants to stop. And so keep that in mind. There are some politicians, especially left-leaning, who will isolate and point out deficiencies that they see in order to possibly try and make some change.
range of tactical weapons, including AR-15 rifles, pepper spray launchers. I don't know what that is. Taser devices. They also utilize military-grade tactical gear, including camouflage pouches and specialized rifle attachments. They have ammunition rifles, like endless amount attached to their body. They have night vision and thermal cameras on drones.
And for those of you saying I give the left way too much leeway, this is actually a critique for conservative media. We have to start educating the viewers and not just consolidate everything as one thing. When we call everybody a protester, Todd Lyons exposed that. Todd Lyons is like, I don't put protesters in the database. But wait, I thought I was told protesters were bad. Todd Lyons was talking about agitators. I really want media, especially conservative media, to start to be more informative and actually educate people as to what are we actually talking about here. And she, in my opinion, is actually taking advantage of the ignorance of the media.
Armored vehicles.
Which is not good.
Heard, Martin, at your house, they were using drones on your house. They make money giving us this stuff. Remember that. And every day they keep any of our immigrant neighbors who are asylee seekers. Some of them are literally just waiting their turn to be able to get that pathway to citizenship. They're making money off of our babies being imprisoned.
Yeah, and I'm almost positive, is she not being investigated, or they are looking to investigate her as far as alleged connections?
I know. What?
Let's move forward here. This is Senator Alex Padilla.
Would you be willing to consider some voter ID measures that Republicans have proposed, like the SAVE Act, for example, in order to get these demands that you're seeking?
You know, it used to be that they weren't saying the quiet part out loud, and now they're shouting it. When Attorney General Bondi sends a letter to Governor Walz saying, sure, we'll pull all the ICE agents out of Minnesota if you hand over your voter list, your voter file, and all the personal information to voters in Minnesota, it tells you what they're really going after. You know, and that happened around the time that Tulsi Gabbard is raiding an elections office in Georgia along with the FBI to confiscate ballots from 2020. The real agenda here is to exploit immigrants in their desire to rig the election this November and hold on to power. That's what it's about for Republicans.
And again, he was also asked about the 71%, and that was basically the response we got. The rigging of elections, according to him. This is going to be Representative Jason Crow also commenting on current events.
We have to actually ask ourselves the questions, what do Americans want and what do Americans deserve? And what they want and what they deserve is a government and a federal law enforcement agency that will go after violent criminals, that will follow the law, and will enforce the law. What they have been given is a rogue, lawless agency that's been built over the last...
Again, you guys, we have to be paying attention to the wording, because on the surface, you're like, yeah, we do want people to find violent criminals. And this is why I am also very critical of some conservative commentators who are not pointing that out to you guys when we're seeing this every day, and people should know this. The violent criminals thing, everybody agrees with. You're not going to find a single politician who's a left-wing politician who says, I don't agree with that. Everybody will say that. But then when you categorize below that, a non-violent criminal, still a criminal, that's where we start to get into the separation, where more Democrats actually agree with Republicans as far as all criminals should be either prosecuted or taken care of. So again, re-listen to the wording, and we skipped over an entire category. He went straight to violent criminals, not talking about the criminals who are maybe pending charges, maybe have been arrested, haven't been added to the documentation, or have broken the law. Pay attention.
And what they want and what they deserve is a government and a federal law enforcement agency that will go after violent criminals, that will follow the law, and will enforce the law. What they have been given...
Violent criminals. Well, you guys can let me know. What about under that? Do you guys think we deserve to also go after just criminals?
Is a rogue, lawless agency that's been built over the last year that is murdering Americans, that is imprisoning people without court hearings, that is deporting citizens and non-citizens alike without counsel, that is creating endless abuses on our streets and in our hometowns, including in Colorado, where you have ICE agents imitating local law enforcement, threatening and intimidating our constituents. Enough is enough.
Alrighty. Now, I've actually covered Jason Crow quite a lot when he was doing his oversight visits over the summer. Moving forward, push back against no more roving masked ICE or CBP. This is going to be from Congressman Krishna Murthy. Hopefully I said his name correct. Let's see what his reasoning is for why he wants what he wants.
Testimony today. And I know that what Democrats want now are hard changes to DHS and restrictions for these federal agents. Senator Blumenthal, of course, a Democratic colleague of yours on the senator side, he's laid out several of those demands.
And by the way, while we're here, 54% of Democrats see crossing the border as a crime. Now, is that a violent crime? Again, the specific wording, it's almost in everything we watch. There is specific wording and terminology that to some of us means something different, but to others are implying something else.
But as you know, the Senate Majority Leader, John Thune, said it might take a miracle to get an ICE deal before the deadline. The House Speaker, Mike Johnson, said today there's no way Congress can require judicial warrants or removing face masks. Do you see a path forward here during these next 2 weeks?
There has to be. We have to negotiate these reforms and make sure that as I say, we have to abolish Trump's ICE. That doesn't mean that we can't be better, but we have to, for instance, have masks off, IDs on, body cameras on, no more warrantless arrests. There have to be third-party investigations of use of force. And very importantly, we can't have roving gangs of ICE agents or CBP agents in our cities basically looking to make trouble. And that's what happened in Chicago, and enough is enough.
Ultimately, as you know, Democrats effectively got bulldozed, fundamentally. I don't like to use that word, but on enhanced ACA subsidies. They lost that battle, shut the government down, lost that battle. Do you believe it'll be different this time? Will Democrats be able to lock in those changes, or might they get bulldozed again?
Well, I think that the majority of the American people are not comfortable at all and heavily disapprove of the way that CBP and ICE have conducted themselves.
Now, that is one statistic Democrats do have in their favor. If we're going to be fair in the reporting, I think it's about 70%. It's conflicting, but 70% of Democrats do not approve of ICE. Again, it's conflicting and a little confusing because 70% of Democrats don't agree with ICE, but 54% of Democrats see coming into the country illegally as a crime. Who would take care of that? That would be ICE. So you guys could take that how you want, but
that's why, President Trump agreed to, split off DHS funding from the rest of government funding. Mm-hmm. Now we have to act on the American people's will. They don't like what they're seeing. And if you just listen to the testimony of the witnesses, it was so gripping. And again, it was not partisan in any way. I mean, if you listen to the witnesses, they talked about, for instance, Miss Martinez being shot in the arm, I think 5 times. She's a U.S. citizen who was stopped for no good reason other than that she fit a racial profile. And that came out loud and clear from her testimony, as well as the testimony of others.
Alrighty, so that is his reasoning as to why he wants to reform, or not fully fund, Homeland Security on Friday. Moving on to Senator Patty Murray.
1. Trump is still trying to make the case that the 2020 election was somehow stolen from him. He now openly, regularly claims he won this election, which of course he did not. This is more than just a deranged old guy with a bruised ego yelling about how he didn't actually lose. Trump is the president. What he says matters. And for him to regularly push the narrative.
Now, I do want to point out, again, I do find it interesting that she is saying what he says matters, and the Trump administration says, well, we actually agree with you, words matter, and the problem the Trump administration has is the rhetoric coming from certain individuals.
That our elections are somehow rigged is dangerous. 2. The FBI raided a Fulton County, Georgia election facility to seize ballots cast in the 2020 election, continuing Trump's witch hunt for lost ballots or fraud, both of which several courts found do not exist. This is a strategic move to create precedent for extreme federal overreach of our elections. 3. Trump's Attorney General, Pam Bondi, sent a list of demands to the state of Minnesota in exchange for DHS agents to stop terrorizing its residents. One of the demands? Federal access to the state's voter registration. The entire Trump administration is attempting to use the power of the federal government to undermine our elections, and we cannot turn a blind eye to it.
Now, it should be noted, the entire state of Minnesota might be a little misleading. There's a lot of support for the deportations in the state of Minnesota. At the beginning of the show, we actually highlighted a bunch of mayors are actually getting together in the state of Minnesota with some sort of declaration pointing out the fraud that they have been seeing.
4. Trump is already planting a seed about not even having midterm elections. He told the
I've personally never heard this, but have you guys heard about this?
Reporter he's accomplished so much that, quote, when you think of it, we shouldn't even have an election. First of all, there will be midterm elections. Trump cannot just decide to cancel them. But threats like this undermine people's confidence in our elections. And it doesn't stop there. In August, Trump claimed that the states have to do whatever he says for our elections, but the Constitution is clear, and Trump cannot bully states to relinquish their election responsibility just because he's in denial about losing an election 6 years.
Okay, so now you guys know why I really tried to dig into what both sides are saying, because I have never heard that before. This is not a trending talking point, and I'm seeing a lot of you guys say you've literally never heard of that before either. But again, she has 466,000 followers, so people watch this, and there are people who are saying, yeah, that did happen, or yeah, this is a very popular talking point. So yeah, just so you are aware, that's why we do what we do on this channel. Congresswoman Presley, this is who I was mentioning before. Congresswoman Presley has been questioned as well as far as her net worth increase. Not fully a formal investigation, but there have been independent investigations circulating as far as her net worth.
Families are struggling. The rent is too damn high. The cost of groceries is too damn high. The big banks are all too eager to nickel and dime hardworking people. And you know what has been a saving grace for families trying to hold on to a buck? That little government agency called the Consumer, emphasis on consumer, Financial Protection Bureau.
That's right.
Well, you may have never heard of them, but they've been working hard for you, the people, for a decade. They're a small but mighty agency that got banks to cap overdraft fees. They take on scammers that are after our elders' money. They stop medical debt from dinging your credit report. They go after for-profit colleges. They are watchdogs fighting for the people. So no wonder Donald Trump has attacked them again and again. He doesn't want watchdogs protecting the people. He wants predators and bad actors to take people for a ride. Meanwhile, the CFPB put $21 billion, that's a B, with $1 billion back in people's pockets. The good policies from the CFPB have been make or break for folks' ability to survive financially in the midst of recessions, pandemics, and much more. But this agency has been dismantled to the core. Now, every day the CFPB is sidelined. Every day it is a day when the financial system is rigged to take more from families and line the pockets of the wealthiest few.
Alrighty, so I figured I would throw that in there to show you what's been happening. A lot of the commentary from actually Republicans and Democrats has mainly been about some Epstein stuff. I'm sure you guys saw that yesterday. There was a hearing over a Zoom call, or a deposition, really a non-deposition. And so a lot of the comments from yesterday were not so much about the SAVE Act or not so much about pushback against ICE. It was more so on that topic. Pleading the Fifth.
As I mentioned in the speech, this apparent abuse of federal law enforcement power.
That's not what we're going to click on. This is not either. I thought I had a clip. Yeah, this is what we're going to click on. Let's actually play this first. So, this politician is sort of getting called out for the voter ID stuff when he was wanting people to have voter ID at his event.
Are suing, trying to block what the Trump administration is doing here. We are expecting a court to order the Trump administration tomorrow to release the background information that they gave the court effectively to allow.
Sorry, let's go here. My bad.
As I mentioned in the speech, this apparent abuse of federal law enforcement power to indulge the president's obsession with overturning the 2020 election and to lay the groundwork for whatever mischief they're planning in a few months, I think is obviously deeply disturbing, deeply chilling, deeply menacing, and also a huge political mistake for this administration, because in Georgia, where now for the second time in 6 years, Georgia voters have the weight of the republic's future on our shoulders, we are just that much more determined to do our part to right the ship.
Okay, so I just wanted to set this up for this clip, and I am curious what you guys think about this. So again, that was commenting on President Trump possibly wanting to rig the midterms. Again, you guys are going to keep hearing that talking point quite a lot when it comes to the SAVE Act.
And not for me, apparently for Dems. Critics are calling out Democrat Senator Jon Ossoff for asking campaign event goers to show government ID at the door. There are a lot of pictures of this going on. But he doesn't want to require the same thing for federal elections. And last year, when the SAVE Act passed the House, Ossoff released the statement, quote, "This is a nakedly partisan, totally unworkable, bad faith bill cynically intended to disenfranchise millions of eligible voters." And
again, this seems to be the one talking point. There are many talking points, but if there's one talking point that unifies Americans, it's this voter ID stuff.
Quote. But even that was a switch up from this comment back in 2021.
Are you open to things like voter ID if, in fact, they correct some of the other issues like early voting?
Absolutely. I think it's right and appropriate, and the widely held view of folks in Georgia and across the country, that we need to be able to make sure we're confirming the identity of folks who are participating in elections.
So in 2021, he did agree with 71% of Democrat voters that voter ID is a good idea. What changed between then and 2026?
Well, he's terrified because he's the most vulnerable Democrat on the map. He's elected in the state of Georgia, which is a conservative state that has 2 Democrat U.S. senators. It's also the home of Stacey Abrams, who engineered this mass mail-in balloting scheme election or so 2 cycles ago, right? So he understands what's at stake, which is if you...
Now, interesting enough, the one Republican who is voting against the SAVE Act as of right now, that won, she cited that, hey, back in 2021, we were all against what Democrats were saying. So now there is like this shift going on here. That was her argumentation.
Actually have people who are voting and you require them to show ID that over 80% of Americans support. Like, you would think in this country, we have a lot of things we can argue about that aren't 80-20 issues. This is an 80-20 issue. This is the kind of thing that we should get done here. This Save America Act is common sense. The Democrats don't like it because it threatens their power. That's the electrical cord that runs through all these positions. They want to kneecap ICE's ability to do their jobs because they don't want deportations and they want illegal immigrants to vote.
Alrighty. Yeah, that is quite the switch up there. Getting called out on that, but again, rather interesting to want identification coming to your event. Definitely an interesting talking point. Here's Rick Scott.
Let me get this straight. John Ossoff has an event that you have to bring an ID to get into, but he opposes a bill that says you have to have an ID to be able to vote. How does that make any sense? And then on top of that, Chuck Schumer says it's racist to ask somebody for an ID. So, Chuck, you gonna go ask John if he's doing something racist? Come on, let's do it.
Wow. Okay. I mean, you guys can let me know what you think about this. Again, it just is what it is at this point. The numbers just lean in favor of Republicans, and I even hate saying that because I mean it just is what it is. But it also leans in favor of Democrats, and I don't know what's gonna happen here, guys. That was Rick Scott again. I feel weird that we even have to report this, but it just is like overwhelmingly everybody in America seems to want this passed.
Ashley Moody here. So, is this a sort of be careful what you wish for moment for Democrats?
You know, when I was asked about President Trump and Secretary Noem coming out and saying, we want to make sure everybody knows, we want to be accountable, we want to be transparent with what we're doing and trying to enforce the law. We're going to start putting body cameras on our ICE agents. They asked me what I thought about that, and I said, you know what? They've been saying for a long time that these quote-unquote peaceful protesters, which are really aggressive agitators, have been throwing things at them, spitting on them, attacking their vehicles, I mean, all kinds of things. So I said, quite honestly,
I remember when I was first covering Homeland Security over the summer, a lot of comments were like, where is the body cam footage? What is going on? Like, why is there no video of it? In fact, even on X, formerly known as Twitter, a lot of the footage we see, and even a lot of the footage that I would investigate, came from live streams or TikToks or third-party sources, not almost hardly ever from body cam footage.
I think it's a smart move, and I think they wanted to do this because it shows what they have been up against in trying to rid these communities of those people here illegally that have committed crimes. And so I thought it was a great idea. And it's so funny, we were talking in my office when they did a 180 on this position about body cameras. I'm like, maybe they heard me, and they're like, oh yeah, maybe we should think about this.
Well, I think yeah, it shows exactly what the agents have to deal with on the ground.
Yeah, and again, there is that slight provision in there that is definitely noteworthy as far as Democrats and Republicans agree, okay, body cameras is great, but then you have in the fine print of the we want body cameras from Democrats, but you cannot use that body camera to track protesters or use it for surveillance. And so to me, that implies is that if we're going to say legal observer that maybe took it too far, Homeland Security takes that footage and puts it on the internet, would that constitute tracking or surveillance? I'll let you guys decide.
Absolutely. And look, at the core, their mission has always been, and you're going to see this play out this week, right? Because they've said, okay, we have 3 demands. No, wait, we have 10 demands.
Yeah.
Now they won't even meet with us to discuss what we need to do to make sure we're funding DHS, which includes, by the way, not just ICE and CBP, it also includes Coast Guard, FEMA, TSA. They're not serious. Their main goal is to disband, demoralize, defund law enforcement. That's always been what the Democratic Party stands for. Before any of this even started happening, if they really cared about keeping communities safe, keeping people safe, they would say, okay, states, locals, you work with them, you protect those communities, you keep them safe while they do their jobs, and they would say, okay, let's pass legislation that creates a buffer zone, which I've proposed in my HALO Act, which gives them room to do their job safely.
Yeah, the HALO Act. If you guys are unaware, this HALO Act would be there has to be a certain distance in which if you want to legally observe, we will have this halo, an invisible halo around agents. I'm wondering if that is something that Democrats and Republicans would be on board with, the HALO Act. That would be a little bit of a compromise as far as allowing for legal observers. And again, allowing is a very loose term when I say that. I'm talking about being a lot closer than people would realize some people get. Here is Congresswoman Dalia, which her statements are going very viral right now from the very recent hearing we just had. I will be going over her statements in tomorrow's live show in the morning. So please turn on your notifications. Make sure to please like. Yeah, her statements are pretty interesting to say the least.
The Department of
right here.
Homeland Security has been a failed agency deploying ICE and CBP to terrorize our communities and enforce a lawless authoritarian agenda. This isn't new. Many of us had for years fought against the extreme abuses of ICE and other parts of DHS, which happened under both Republican and Democratic administrations. Let's be clear. And now we're seeing the consequences. They are killing people. Not only Renee Nicholas Good and Alex Preddy in Minneapolis, but also Silverio Villegas Gonzalez in my district, and everyone who has died in ICE custody. As a matter of fact, another constituent who was shot 5 times a few days after Silverio was killed is here today in the Senate telling her story to the Senate and, of course, to the nation as well. Because they're racially profiling people, they're brutalizing protesters, ripping families apart, dumping them in concentration camps, and claiming the authority to override the Constitution and its protections against this lawlessness. So no half measures against authoritarianism. That's why I'm proud to join the chief sponsors in advancing Melt ICE now and Melt it completely.
Okay, and keep in mind, Dalia is on the House Oversight Committee and is advocating for melting ICE, and that would be, of course, abolishing ICE. Here's Senator Eric Schmidt.
So Democrats want to talk about illegal immigration. Great, we can talk about it all day long, every day. That's why I put forth the Protect America Act that would end sanctuary cities, increase penalties for illegal entry and reentry, increase penalties for assaulting ICE officers, and getting rid of these NGOs that are fueling a lot of the violence that we see on the streets. That's my counterproposal. That's the counterproposal, I think, of conservatives in this conference. So we're not interested in entertaining these ridiculous ideas that Democrats have. We're not doing it. If you want to do something, let's strengthen our immigration laws. But if they want to, look, if they want to shut down TSA, if they want to shut down FEMA, that's fine.
Okay, and again, I hold the position that I think the only way you will ever see compromise or working together, like if Republicans one day say, we don't need the mask, take the mask off, I think this would be the only way that would ever happen is if the penalties go up substantially, as far as if you come in the country illegally, or if you get caught leaking information, or if you put your hands on an agent. That is the only way, in my opinion, I see any sort of compromise. But all right, we have been going now for an hour and 30 minutes. That is going to be the most relevant updates as far as actions in Minnesota, as far as the SAVE Act back and forth. And now we have a lot of back and forth as far as some Epstein stuff, as far as some recent comments made against Homeland Security. And I will be doing some more research for you. We also have, again, a really big story involving a man who allegedly did something, wanted to do some heinous stuff to ICE agents in Portland. So I got to figure out what direction I'm going to take things. I might make a posted video tonight to talk about what happened in Portland. But yeah, it's pretty out there. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope I was as fair as possible, and I appreciate all of you guys for being here. I apologize for the morning show. A lot of you guys didn't get the notification. I don't know why, but that's what happens sometimes. A little secret for you guys. If you want to see your favorite YouTubers, you have to interact with their videos. That adds a higher probability of you seeing their videos. That's just the way it goes on here. All right, so I hope you guys all enjoyed it. God bless all of you guys, and please pray for peace. We need that right now. That's why we make these videos. We look at all the different perspectives. We come together and try to dissect what the talking points are so you guys can actually have an informed opinion on what's happening here. So I appreciate all of you. Thank you for subscribing as well, and please seek Christ. Thank you guys for everything. God bless, and we'll see you all later. Thank you guys.